While Men is bound to have the feminists drooling and the anti-feminists up in arms simply because of the title, those who take the time to watch it will find it is a nuanced yet potent dose of primitive and topical horror from Alex Garland. So if you will, allow me and my toxic penis to mansplain to you whether or not you should make the effort to see it.
Men, 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 manly men, 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 manly men, men, men.
Men, 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 manly men. Ooh.
Men, 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 men.
Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Men is new in select theaters from A24. It's directed and written by Alex Garland. After the death of her husband, played by Papa Esidu, Harper, played by Taboo's Jessie Buckley, takes a holiday to a quiet country town to right herself and decide what to do next with her life. When she arrives at the country estate she will be residing in, Harper meets the groundskeeper, Jeffrey, played by Penny Dreadful's Rory Kinnear, who is polite and welcoming, though somewhat too inquisitive as to why Harper would reside in the large house by herself. After an evening stroll ends with a strange man following her through the woods, the strange man being played by Rory Kinnear as well, Harper begins suspecting that something is wrong with the village she is staying in, and the more she spends there, the more it has to do with the loss of her husband. Right off the bat, I want to say this is a highly effective film. Alex Garland is one of my favorite new filmmakers, and whenever I see his name attached to a project, be it on TV or the silver screen, my attention is always piqued. Garland always displays a unique way of looking at the simpler things, as proven in Men, as he chooses to let his camera linger on nature long enough for you to notice the intricacies that give it more of an alien environment feel. Numerous times we look at the mundane, but as the camera zooms in, we invade that shot, take it apart with our senses, and then put it back together again. Garland's focus on these seemingly meaningless establishing shots dwell long enough to make you actually think about what you are seeing, what it could mean, and how it could affect the story. That's a talent many modern filmmakers lack, and Men is full of these shots. It's also a marvelously acted film. Jessie Buckley has been in some powerhouse roles before. I loved her on Taboo, and she shined brightly in I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Here she delivers a restrained but strong performance of a woman struggling with inner turmoil. She's trying to understand the predicament she's in. She feels guilty about her husband's death, which occurs right after she told him that she wanted a divorce. This turmoil weighs heavy on her, but Harper also has a plain, every woman quality, serving as a blank slate, experiencing things every woman must endure in modern society. Because of this, Buckley's performance may seem more restrained and more non-flashy than it really is. Still, it's highly effective in this specific tale being told. The true standout is the many levels of terror Rory Kinnear offers up in Men. Kinnear plays multiple roles, practically every man Harper encounters, save for her husband. Cloaked in a polite, non-confrontational, yet conversational style, his interactions with Harper are barbed and increasingly threatening. Be he a gentle talking vicar, a kindly innkeeper, a bizarre-looking de-aged punk kid, or a malevolent naked man who follows her home from the woods, Kinnear's performance in this film is Oscar-worthy, though this is not the type of film that gets that sort of attention. Kinnear's subtle differences between these multiple roles are what amplifies the terror ever so slightly from beginning to end, right up to the over-the-top climax where everything goes sideways, upside down, and utterly bug nuts. The body horror on display during the climax of Men is something you simply can't unsee as Harper fights tooth and nail against her multiple male pursuers. This is the type of body transformation and manipulation that will make you wince and squirm. It's unusual and most definitely something you've never seen before in a horror movie. While unique, it still manages to hit you on a level that makes its mark and resonates as something much more than just blood and guts. As with everything else, the gore has a huge weight to the themes Men explores. So while it might make you gag and quiver, this gruesome sight has a point. So let's get to the point of Men, because naming a film Men in this day and age is a surefire way of being confrontational, controversial, and political. The themes of Men are very heavy and dense. They can't be explained in one sentence and can be approached from many different angles. So while my approach may not be yours or the intention of the filmmaker, I think some kind of film analysis of the plot is necessary when talking about Men. So here's mine. From one angle, the men in Men represent all men in the world. It's your typical feminist movie where every man our hero Harper encounters is posed as some kind of threat. In order for Harper to attain some kind of peace, she must run a gauntlet of men, all played by the same actor with different prosthetics, costumes, and CG enhancements. This, in some way, might be read as somewhat demeaning and oversimplifying the men as a whole. I can only imagine the reception a movie called Women would get, where every woman in the film is played by the same actress. Still, on a very simplistic level, woman fighting against man in order to attain some kind of inner peace is one overarching theme, simplistic as it is. Then again, one could look at Men on a more Freudian level. The highly effective scene where Harper encounters a deep cave and decides to enter it seems to be the inciting moment when Harper begins to encounter all of this strangeness. If you're looking at it from a Freudian sense, every cave is a vagina, every knife a penis. Harper encounters this deep hole and is scared by what she finds inside. In many ways, she becomes the more masculine part, entering this long cave. Later, she brandishes a knife, which could be seen as a penetrating tool if you're looking at this metaphorically. Could this mean Harper is afraid of her own womanhood? This is where the creature who follows her home literally comes out of the cave. Was Harper afraid to have children? Had she lost a child? Had she discussed parenthood with her husband, and that's the reason why she wanted a divorce? None of the answers are mapped out precisely, and nothing is given away in dialogue or scene, but it seems something about Harper's womanhood scares her, as exemplified by this extremely terrifying, yet highly symbolic scene. Or maybe things went awry earlier in the film if you're looking at things in a biblical sense. The first thing Harper does is pluck and eat an apple from a tree, hearkening back to Eve's original sin in the Garden of Eden. The groundskeeper even mentions that it is forbidden fruit. The sense that Harper represents all women, as Eve does in the Bible, along with the numerous references to the church as a place of solace and sin, show that Garland was considering the good book and all that comes with it while coming up with this story. Adhering to a sense of tradition and age-old beliefs versus modern thinking seems to be challenges Harper faces as she journeys through the overgrown forest of terrors. If there's a flaw in Men, it's that the film doesn't allow Harper to be much of a character, save for what we see of her before she arrives at the country home. We know her husband died. We know they argued before that. We know she wanted a divorce. But is this a long series of failed and abusive relationships? Was there a child ever involved? Was Harper assaulted in the past, and it was never really addressed? Because Garland holds back anything relating to Harper's past or individuality, we really don't know where these threats are coming from. Yes, her relationship between her and her husband seemed very troubled, but that's all we know. Harper is such a blank slate, and every woman in this allegory, that because she represents all women, she lacks what makes her an individual, and thus an interesting character. The final moments of Men are what will be the decisive factor among its audience. While effects heavy, it also involves birth in its most unnatural form. It suggests negative male traits, which had been hinted at by the various versions of Kinnear's characters earlier in the film, are what creates the next generation of negative traits. Toxicity begets toxicity and all that, to use a trendy word. While a bit on the nose, this proves to be an effective yet vague end to a very strange yet impactful movie. I'd recommend Men to the free thinkers of the audience. It's gory, but it's gruesome with strong intent. The views are meant to challenge. The themes are meant to unsettle. It raises more questions, and definitely will spark more debate than you're used to when you get out of a horror movie. but I love films like that. Men utilizes modern stereotypes, then challenges them, but not in the way one might think. In the end, it's about how Harper feels about herself, not about how others feel about her. It's a simple point, but moves the finger away from men as a whole and points itself inward in what turned out to be a refreshing, more productive, and insightful way. This deeper sense of life and its ups and downs, as horrific as they often are, seem to be the bread and butter of Alice Garland's films, and Men continues this streak of intriguing yet unique ways of coping with them.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're